How's it going, guys? My name is OnesieBanette and welcome to the unofficial Pokemon Academy Life Forever Characters Week 7 tier list. Now, this was an idea that was brought basically in the Pokemon Academy Life Discord. Now that this series, for me, or at least all the content in the game, has been shown, I figured now would be a good time to go in, reflect, talk a little bit about what I thought about each character, the way that they were written, the way that they had an impact and urgency/agency in the story, and yeah, I figured it would be a very fun time. Now, if you want to go along and make your own tier list yourself, head over to the Pokemon Academy Life Discord. The link will be down in the description below. This was created by a couple of the members of the Discord. I believe J-Will was the one that put it together. But yeah, if you want to go and join the Discord yourselves, head over to the chat over there and make your own tier list. Let me know whether you agree or disagree. But without further ado, let's get into it. Now, before we actually go any further, I love doing that. I love saying let's like without further ado and then just taking another sidetrack. But there's two things that I have to do first. I have to add a row below the D tier. And that row is basically for have not met yet. Because there are a few characters, mainly some teachers, that we have not met yet. Also, I've just got rid of the D tier. God damn it. Right, this is have not met yet. We're all about technical competency here, and that is the D tier. So yeah, this is what our tier list is going to look like. This is the format, the structure that it's going to be in. And yeah, let's just go in and start from top left to bottom right. And the first character that we have to have a bit of an opinion on is Alder. Now Alder, of course, is an ever-present in my series. Every episode of Pokemon Academy Life basically had at some point Alder in it going, "That'll be all for today. Enjoy the rest of your day." And it wasn't a Pokemon Academy Life episode without having Alder saying that. It's a mainstay. I think he's an interesting character. He's a bit of an old boomer, but I think he's solidly in the B tier. Nothing too special, nothing too bad. You know, just one of those. Now, Alistair, we have not met him yet. We don't know anything about Alistair, at least I personally in the playthrough haven't. I know he's in the game, but I have not met him yet, so I don't really have much of an opinion on him. Maybe I'll go back and try out some of the type elective classes we didn't do. Maybe, but for now, we haven't met him, so we can't really have an opinion on him. Sorry, Alistair fans, your boy's not getting any love yet. Next up, we have Annabelle, and for me, I'm thinking she sits firmly into the C tier, and the reason I think C is because she hasn't really had too much of an impact on the story as of yet. She showed up, told Bianca that her dad was dead, interrogated her for a bit, and that was it. In terms of voicing her, I didn't really have any idea of what I should do with the character. She's a little bit plain Jane in terms of voice. And yeah, like, she didn't seem to have too many overly impactful lines or anything. I don't think that as of yet she's been super involved, but I do know going forward they'll probably have some more of a role for her. So for now, I think C's fair. Now B for me is a surprising one because I didn't expect B to have much of an impact on the story whatsoever. But based off of the impact that she has had and the amount of times she's shown up in my playthrough specifically, I think A is a pretty decent placement for her. She was the one that basically talked and walked us over to Bianca to make sure she was okay when she was being interrogated by Annabelle, and we've done her rank 1 scene. She seems genuinely interested. She showed up in a lot more story beats than I expected, so yeah, interesting character, surprisingly impactful. Now, your girl over here we have not met, at least in the story. I believe that's Agatha. I don't think we've met Agatha as of yet, so I think we have to put her in the not met yet. Now, Bianca, she came into her own a little bit in the most recent week. She has been one of the most fun characters for me to voice because I get to do a little bit of this. Oh my god, she's like my favorite person ever, Melvin Whitaker. Oh my god. So yeah, I figured it would be a fun sort of, she's a fun character, so I think she's firmly in the A tier. She's interesting story-wise, she's interesting character-wise, she's interesting for me to voice-wise, so firmly in the A tier. I don't think that I've seen enough to put her in S, but I think A for now is a good little indicator. Now, Blaine, haven't met him yet, haven't taken a fire elective, which I'm assuming he's the fire class person. So, yeah, nothing as of yet for Blaine. maybe we'll go back and do his type elective class at some point. Blue, right in an S, one of the most nuanced and interesting characters in the game. Not only voice-wise, where I get to talk a little bit like this. Oh my god, that Pikachu of yours. But also character-wise, he's very nuanced. He's got a lot of different sides to his character. I think he's very super interesting and absolutely deserves an S rating. So for now, he's going there. Now, Brawly. We haven't really seen too much of Brawly. He's kind of a bit of a side character, and for me I think that deserves a C tier because he's not exactly been the most impactful on the story. He's a student council member. Obviously we know in the recent scenes he's a bit of a naughty boy. Enjoys going to the swimming pool after night, if you get my drift. And that's, you know, it's a good thing. It's an interesting story beat, but that's kind of all we have to go off of with him. So for now, I think he earns his spot in the C tier. I'm sure we might move him up or down, but I can't really rate him any higher than Annabelle. Maybe either side. In fact, yeah, I think we'll put him top of C for now. I think he's more interesting than Annabelle, at least for the moment. But we'll see what the future has to bring. Now, Brendan is an interesting one for me. One of the original members of Dawn 151. He's obviously a mainstay in the series. He's one of the OG characters. But for me, he's the weakest of the original Dawn. He doesn't have too much impact in the story. He doesn't really do too much. He's a bit nuanced. He's got a little bit of, he's got a little bit of gender sort of breaking qualities to him, where he wants to be a coordinator rather than a battler, and he's obviously battling with people having that misconception of you have to be a girl to be a coordinator, and that's all he wants to be. But in terms of actual like character, like he's fun to voice, because I get to do a little bit of a southern accent on him. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Like, he's interesting, but I don't think in terms of character he's the strongest of the bunch. So, for me, surprisingly, I think I have to put him in B tier. I don't think he's as good as B. I don't think he's as good as Bianca. I think he goes there. Now, there's more to him, and I'm sure a lot of it is just that I haven't hung around with him enough. I haven't done his rank 1 scene, for example. But I think that, there's an example of, like, a character who, depending on your playthrough, you'd have a completely different opinion of. And that's the good thing about visual novels, and this one in particular. You can hang out with basically any of the characters, and you can get a lot more impact with one than you can with another. Speaking of characters you can have more impact with, Brock. Solid C. Haven't seen enough of him to really rank any higher. He's only really had one scene when he was trying to convince Leaf that it's okay to, fly on Latias above the sea. So that's kind of really all we've seen of him. Maybe we'll see a bit more in the future. He kind of hinted that he's going to be sticking around and he's going to have a bit more of an impact in the plot at some point. So, yeah, Brock, I think, kind of stays here. I think he's C below Annabelle for now. If we see a bit more of Brock, potentially move him up or down. But for now, I think this is where he is. Bruno doesn't really do much. He's kind of just your typical teacher. He's the other half of Alder, and I think these two come as a pair. I think they kind of have to go next to each other. He does allow me to do this kind of voice and do a little gruff teacher voice, which is nice, a bit more variety. And obviously, we don't really see too much character from him, apart from in the most recent week where he had that trash-talking battle with Alder, which was kind of fun. But that was sort of all we've really seen of him so far. And hopefully we'll see a little bit more of him in the future, learn a bit more about his backstory. But for now, he's just kind of standard teacher.exe. So I think B, possibly a C. I think maybe a B, because if you put Alder there, you kind of have to put Bruno there. I think that's fair. Now, my old nemesis, Berg, is going straight into C. He's just the bug teacher. He's the bug type elective teacher. And this is definitely a me issue. So obviously, this is my tier list, so I do what I want with it. But objectively speaking, I didn't really have the greatest sort of opinion of Berg, because when I was doing his type elective classes before the update, there was only really one thing he would say on repeat, and that was basically, I've been taking a lot of inspiration from the wings of bug type Pokemon. What's your... And it was the same dialogue on repeat. Now, they've changed that in recent updates, so if I go back and, see more... maybe that this changes, but for me, I think Berg is a C. He's just your generic teacher. We did a lot of bug type electives because obviously we had a Ninjask that we were trying to raise up and a Shedinja, but for me, I think C tier is probably the way to go. Now, Byron have not met, so he goes straight in there, and Calum is, I think, our third A ranking member. I think he goes about here. He's an interesting character because there's a lot of nuance between his relationship with him and Serena. They're very interesting characters between them. There's a lot of backstory and bad blood that goes there. And obviously there's the whole relationship aspect. It's quite interesting to look at from an outside perspective. He was quite interesting to voice. He was supposed to be written with a Colossian French accent, but unfortunately I wasn't confident in my French accent, so I gave him this sort of smarmy, very charming sort of American accent. So it was interesting from a voice perspective to do. It was interesting from a character perspective. There's a lot more than meets the eye. He's been very story impactful because he was obviously on the student council with us, or at least trying to get into the student council with us. And yeah, I figured it was a cool idea to, write his character the way they have, and there's a lot more to come from him. I'm sure we're going to learn a bit more about him in the upcoming weeks, and yeah, it should be all good. Unfortunately, the next member is someone that deserves his own category, so I'm going to add a row below, and we're going to call it I Hate You with a burning passion, you nasty boy. And Sharon is going to be the first, if not only, member of that group. I'm just gonna reorganize. There we go. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, Sharon's gonna be the first member of that little group right there. And Sharon, from a character perspective, is very, very well written. He is nuanced. There's a lot of different ways you can interpret his character. He's very prideful. He's very intelligent, not necessarily emotionally intelligent. He's very do or die, but also I fucking hate him. He is the reason that a lot of the story got set in motion. He is the reason that we ended up getting exposed to the school, and from a story aspect, he's very, very impactful. So, he's one of those characters that he's written in a way that is very polarizing. You either love him or you hate him. Personally, because I was kind of projecting myself onto the player character, I think he's probably gonna have to be in his own little tier. I cannot stand him. I want to see him fall from grace, and the moment you gave me the option to smack him in the face, I took it. And I'll do it again. I'll fucking do it again. But yeah, Sharon, it'd be interesting to see what happens with him further forward. And yeah, I hope that we get some more development with him. I'm sure that we will. He's one of the most influential characters in the game, and he's a very cool character. Uninfluential characters, however, I think Claire has to be on the same sort of level as Berg. Berg is probably better because I've interacted more. Claire, I've only done one sort of dragon class, and that was when we were playing as Blue during the You Are No Longer You event, part of the game. And yeah, it was a cool moment. She seems like a bit of a hard ass. We did one dragon type class and it was interesting, but yeah, I think in the case of Claire, I'd love to see a bit more of her character. She seems like she could be very interesting, but just because I personally haven't had much interaction with her, she's kind of a little bit unmemorable, so she goes in the C tier. Dawn, S tier, absolute S tier. She is fun to voice. I give her that kind of, oh my god, I've never had a birthday before sort of voice, and I thought it was really fun. She's really funny when she's on screen with other characters. That whole Gardenia and Sonia scene where she falls in the vase, that was hilarious. I couldn't stop laughing at that. She's interesting character-wise because she's got a really interesting backstory to her. She's very deep on her character because obviously there's the whole backstory with her mother pushing her to do things and the whole champion challenge, and she's the reason that we learn about our Pikachu's powers. So she's very impactful story-wise, she's very well written, she's very funny, she's very strong. She's definitely S. Not as good as Blue for me because I just think he's so good story-wise, but she's definitely up there. Now the Dean himself, I think he goes in A tier below B because as a teacher, he's the dean of the school. He is the big head honcho. He is the man that makes the big decisions. He's a great character, and from a story perspective, he's got a lot of agency about him. From a voice perspective, I got to speak a little bit like this. Mr. Onesie, please come to the school head office immediately. And it was a little bit of a variety amongst the voices, so I thought that was fun. It was interesting to voice him. And yeah, I thought he was well written. It's got a lot of depth to him in terms of, you know, he wants what's best for the school, but he also wants what's best for the students. Yeah, a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of politics going on with him. Interesting character. Didn't ever dislike him being on screen. And I think the art is very pretty as well. So yeah, Drayden goes there. Eri, I haven't really seen enough of her. She seems like an interesting character, and she's certainly unique amongst the cast because she's one of the only people that has like a broken accent. But it kind of makes it a little bit difficult for me because she's supposed to be from Paldea, which means that she should probably have the Spanish accent. But I'm not the best at giving the Spanish accent. It's very difficult for me, you know what I'm saying? So I kind of ended up falling off into like an Eastern European with her. The right arm is the cannon, the left is the jackhammer. And I thought that was comical and funny, but it was, you know, not quite right for the character. She's interesting. She's definitely interesting. And I'm sure she's going to have a lot more story agency in the future, but I just haven't seen enough of her so far to really warrant any higher than a C tier. I'd argue she probably goes below Brawley. That's probably about right so far. Even probably below. I think Brock probably goes up to there. Yeah, these last three are sort of interchangeable. That's where we're at the moment. Erica, A tier, above Drayden. Interesting character. Some very unique scenes involving Erica, including the one where she slaps you in the face. She's definitely got a lot of different multifaceted sides to her. Firstly, there was the whole, she was obviously a little bit attracted to the main character. Some of the stuff that she was doing, she was like lingering with her touches and stuff, and you know, always wanted to try and get involved with him. Then when she found out about the mind control powers, there was a bit of the whole, oh well, now I don't trust him whatsoever and I want him kicked off the team. So you know, there's a lot of different things going on with Erica's character. As a character design, Erica is a very plain sort of beauty. That's the way she's always been interpreted in Pokemon games. The whole Erica's character comes from old sort of sayings as a young woman is like a beautiful flower in bloom, and that was kind of like the whole inspiration for her character. But this interpretation of her gives her a lot more personality than any other sort of Pokemon game that we've seen so far, and as such I think that she's a fantastic addition to the cast. And yeah, I just think that she's a great addition. She's very strong, she's a battle team member, and it's going to be very interesting to see how she sort of progresses from here, because there's a lot of potential for how she moves forward. I'm a big fan of Erica's. I think she's written highly, and honestly, with some future progression, I could see her moving up to S tier, but for now, very promising A tier. Ethan, get your ass right to the top. I am a massive, massive fan of Ethan. I think that he's one of the most interesting written characters in the game. He's got a lot of mature themes about him, which there are some other characters with mature themes about them, but Ethan's with the whole depression sort of situation is very interesting from a character standpoint. Voicing him, I always thought he was kind of easy to voice, but it's sort of memorable because all I have to do is sort of do your generic American accent, your protagonist sort of accent, and it kind of works out really well. So he's very refreshing to voice because it doesn't put too much strain on me. He's really interesting. There's a lot going on with him. His art is really pretty. He's very, very impactful on the story. Yeah, definitely an S tier for Ethan. I think he's fantastic, and he definitely deserves that spot. Someone who doesn't deserve an S spot, however, is this shitbag right here. And she goes right next to Shiren in the I hate you with a burning passion, you nasty boy. Slash girl. I think she's an interesting character from like a standpoint, like from a personality standpoint. She's just a rich hoity-toity girl. She gave me some interesting voice opportunities, but I don't know, like, I hate them. I hate them. They deserve slaps in the face. They're arseholes, they're bitches, they're wankers, they're a lot of other generic British slag off curse words. The art's pretty, they're cool, but I do wish that they had a name, because her and the ace trainer M, you know, they are recurring characters, and I would like to see them named at some point, just because I don't like referring to them as Ace M and Ace F, unless they're never showing up again, in which case, you know, it is whatever. But yeah, I think they're cool characters. They're interesting, but yeah, probably don't deserve any higher than I hate you with a burning passion, because I do fucking hate them. Faulkner, not really anything to say about him. I think he goes right next to Brawley just because I think his design is cool, but I think the problem with Faulkner is that we haven't really had much interaction with him. He's obviously the one that put us in our dorm, but we don't really know much about him other than he's kind of like the straight man to Brawley and Roxanne's sort of wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube madness. He's kind of like the straight man to their comedy, and it kind of works, but there's not really any sort of agency with him about the story. He doesn't really do too much. He's just kind of there, and I think C's respectful for that. Now, Fantina, I think she goes kind of in the middle of Claire and Berg. I mean, she's quite interesting to voice because Fantina as a character, as a concept, is very cool. I think this foreigner who's come to a new land and speaks in a French accent, no? Oh, c'est magnifique, I will beat you down with my ghost types. She's very interesting to voice and very interesting from a character perspective, but I haven't really seen enough of her. I've only really done a couple of ghost classes because I was on a very small tangent of trying to get a Banette at one point, but I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, she's interesting, she's cool, design-wise she's interesting, but I can't really put her any higher than a C. Now Flannery I think is a B. I think she's right below Brendan because this is another one of those subjective ones. There are a lot of people that would have gone into Flannery's rank 1 event and stuff and immediately been like, right, Flannery is the bae, she is the one, she's the one I'm going to try and get all the heart points with. But for me, I just didn't see enough of her in the story. She's got some interesting things about her, the whole I'm not awake before 12 PM thing that she's got going on is quite interesting. A whole dependence on Whitney and the character dichotomy they've got there going on is quite interesting, but for me, I can't really put her any higher than that. Cool design, iconic Pokemon gym leader, but I think B tier is probably fine. Gardenia, on the other hand, I think she's a low A. I think she's a low A tier because I've seen enough smatterings about Gardenia to see that there's definitely some room to explore with her character there. There's definitely some hidden insecurities under the surface. She's very understanding as a character. Obviously these money-hungry characters are a bit of an archetype in a lot of Japanese media. Look at Anna from Fire Emblem. There's a lot of other examples in anime as well. But I think Gardenia's shown enough under the surface that she's definitely got a little bit more going on about her. She's more understanding than meets the eye. She's more forgiving than meets the eye. She's very cunning, very interesting character. And yeah, I think she deserves the placement there at low A tier. Now, in terms of the way she's got her personality, that money hungriness, that's the first time I've ever seen her portrayed that way in Pokemon media. So it was definitely a choice, but I think it was one that paid off. So yeah, you deserve to be there. Now, Grusha is an interesting one. I think I put him high B tier. In terms of the art, I think the art for Grusha is some of the most interesting in the game. I just think, you know, they've managed to take this character that was only in 3D, transfer their model into like a 2D visual novel style and make it compelling with multi-layered facets to it in terms of like the different expressions and layers of the model. For example, the scarf comes off to reveal his face. And I think that Grusha's interesting. There's a lot of depth to him with the whole health issue thing. He seems like an interesting character personality-wise as well because of his whole laid-back attitude, except when it comes to Jasmine, then he'll, you know, fight anyone over her. Yeah, I think interesting character. A lot more to see from Grusha. I'd love to do some more of the heart events with him and see some of the rank-up scenes. But for now, I think Grusha deserves a high B tier. High B tier. Hilbert's... I don't like Hilbert as much as Bianca, I don't think. I think that's probably where I would place Hilbert. I think he'd probably go there. Maybe S, maybe A. Oh, I don't know. I think he's probably there. And the reason I think he's probably there is because he's an interesting, fun character, and I enjoy whenever he's on screen. He allows me to speak like this and break up the usual tones of the voice acting department. And I think his character's genuinely interesting. He seems like this ultra capable battler who knows his shit, but when it comes to real life, he's got no sort of clue. Hilda has to look after him 100%, and we'll get to her in a minute. And I think those two are an interesting pair. They are definitely the black and white. They are definitely two sides of the same coin. They look after each other, and they clash with each other, but they ultimately make each other better people. I think that's an interesting character choice, and I think he definitely deserves his spot there. Hilda, of course, right next to him, because as I said, they are definitely two sides of the same coin. Hilda's voice was a little bit more nuanced for me to do, because she's supposed to be this sort of like gruff American hard-ass mom, but, you know, it's kind of difficult to get that across without kind of, you know, giving her a little bit of a soccer mom accent, and I was trying to be a little bit sort of subtle with it. But from a character standpoint, she's definitely the mom of the group. She looks after everyone, does everything for everyone, and her whole character arc is going to be allowing people to look after her, which is, you know, it's kind of like your typical Hallmark movie. Big city woman realizes that she has to look after herself and career isn't everything, sort of kind of half deal. But it's interesting. I think she's a great character. She's got great models. I think she's really interestingly drawn, and her rank up scenes are quite interesting. So I think she definitely deserves a placement there. Now Iris, I think, has to go somewhere in the C tier, probably above Eri, below Brock, because we've only really seen bits and bobs of her, and her character is very one note. That's not necessarily a bad thing. She's this super capable child superstar prodigy who is like the most capable battler that we've seen so far in the series, but she's also a child, so it's very sort of anime aesthetic. It's very sort of I'm trying to think of the words to say. It's not lolly, but because that's a completely different thing. But it's very sort of anime inspired in terms of like that sort of character, this super capable child genius. It's giving Betty vibes from ReZero. Yeah, interesting character. I think there's definitely more to come from Iris, and we'll see a bit more nuance in her character, but children are always quite difficult to write effectively in sort of like visual novel stories, because there's a tendency to make them overly childlike, as opposed to giving them actual mature depth to them. And so far from Iris, there's definitely the opportunity for her to have some mature beyond her years sort of scenes, but also it's very difficult to get that character across when she's introduced as Dean Drane's daughter. So yeah, there's more to come from Iris. It's going to be interesting to see the way that the character is written moving forward, but for now I think a low sort of C tier is probably fine. Janine, S tier, no questions asked. She's a great character. She's written very well. She's got insecurities, obviously, about the whole battle team situation. She's got an interesting dichotomy with Lance that, again, sort of like they complete each other in terms of they both idealize two different ways of doing things, and they butt heads but work together effectively because of it. It's a good little thing they've got going on there, Janine and Lance do. And I think Janine, she's also a lot more forthcoming towards the main character than some of the other pokey girls are, which is quite refreshing in a game where you kind of have to make the first move and rank people up. She made her intentions known very, very early on from the off, that she's a bit of a dommy mommy. Oh god, that felt horrible to say, but she is. She's one of the more dominant characters in the game, and it's nice to have that sort of juxtaposition between some of the other characters. Of some of them are a bit more domineering, some of them are a bit more like forthcoming, and some of them are a little bit more submissive. So I think she's a good character. She's interestingly written. She's got more to her than just, hey, I'm Janine, oh my god, you know, like there's definitely more to it, and I think she deserves an S tiering. Jasmine, I think, is high A. I think she sits between Hilda and Hilbert and Bianca, because I think there's definitely a lot towards Jasmine's character. She is one of the better written Pokemon characters in general. She's one of the few characters that has a backstory. You have to do a little bit of a quest to get access to her gym, and I think that's good because we want more things like that in the world of Pokemon. I think she's cool. I think the model, I think it was Lusty that made the model. I think it's a very pretty looking model. She's one of my favourite Pokegirls in it. I think she's got interesting story behind her, the whole environmental and the health issue side of things. I think she's a cool character. She's definitely got a lot of room to grow. She was on the student council with us, so she's had a bit of story agency that way. We met a couple of characters through trying to meet Jasmine. For example, we met Grusha that way as well. So yeah, I think she's cool. She's got a lot about her, and it'll be interesting to see the way that she's written moving forward. Karen. We have been doing a lot of Karen's classes recently, and I think that she probably just belongs with the other teachers, right ahead of Claire, below Fantina, above Fantina, sort of here-ish, I think. She definitely has some interesting things to say. When we started doing her classes, it was after one of the updates where they started adding more sort of type elective class dialogue, which was good, and it was very interesting to see the way that she was written. She doesn't really care too much about types. She just brings what she wants, and I like that. And yeah, she's interesting. Be nice to see her have a bit more agency in the story, a few more story-centric scenes. But yeah, I mean, not everyone can be involved in the story, and the game needs a few C-tier gym leaders, you know, so I think she deserves to go here. Haven't met whoever this is. Who is that? I don't know who that is. But either way, we haven't met them, so yeah, haven't met them. Professor Cherry, I think, goes mid-A. I think sort of either side of B, I think. She's interesting. She's one of the few teacher characters that you can actually interact with on like more of a deep level. She's only a few years older than us after all, so you know, it's interesting to have her, you know, involvement in the story that way. She's got backstory with Ethan. She's deeply woven into the fabric of the character. She's got story progression, especially in week 7. She really came into her own where she led our type classes, our homeroom classes, sorry. And yeah, I think she's a good character. She's definitely got more to show, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the game does with that. So she's definitely A tier. Bit difficult to voice, but I can't really take that into consideration. She's well written, definitely belongs there. Ace Trainer F doesn't really have any story impact. Was a bit awkward to voice. I think D. I don't think anyone will argue with that. Lance, I think, has to go in the S tier, just because he's one of the first characters in the game that really was a bit antagonistic towards you. Until Lance was involved, a lot of characters were just sort of happy-go-lucky, everyone loves you sort of deal. Lance was the first character to really go against the grain when it comes to that, and I respected it a lot. And I think he's written well. He's got some depth and some nuance to him. He gave me an opportunity to do accents like this in my natural accent. I will not have you do this anymore. Like, I thought he was really interesting to voice, very interesting written. He showed up at some pivotal moments in the game, and he added a lot of drama to it. So he's definitely a positive impact on the game's story. He definitely deserves an S tier. Leaf, right in, probably... Oh, where do I think she ranks above Dawn, either side of Gary, either side of Blue. I think she could be, either side would be happy. I'm going to put her just there for now. She's definitely one of the top candidates for, you know, romance options. She has a lot of story agency. You actually play as her for a while, which is definitely a, you know, a welcome sight in this game. She adds a lot to the story. She adds a lot to the game in general. I respect her character and the way she's written a lot. She's got trauma, which is one of the more mature themes in the game that she has to try and overcome. She's funny, she's hilarious. The amount of times she's just cracked me up. Yeah, she's definitely either side of Blue here. I think I'd argue I'd put her there. She's definitely at least second. I don't think she tops Ethan for me because there's a lot more to see from Ethan and I genuinely want to see what's going on with him. But I'm happy with Leaf in it. Definitely top 2. Lenora, I think we've only done one of her classes, and I think it was back in the day, so I'm kind of willing to just put her in the have not met yet, because I don't think we've done much with her at all. Lycia, I think she goes mid-B. I think she's a bit more interesting than Alder as a character, but not quite as interesting as Flannery. She's definitely got some fun some fun interactions going on with Dawn. May. And Dawn. Yeah, actually, yeah, May and Dawn. She's definitely got some interesting stuff going on there. And yeah, she's a fun character. She's definitely got some more to show story-wise now that she's sort of like a mainstay with the Coordinators Club. Be interesting to see what happens with that storyline. Yeah, she's also got a bit of story agency about her as well, because she's unintentionally the reason why Bianca's father died, which is not great. But yeah, definitely deserves at least a mid-B. I can see her being higher depending on more story progression, but for now, she's definitely there. This motherfucker, however, smug arsehole, I kind of gave him like a bit of a Pegasus vibe. I don't think you deserve to be at this school, Yugi boy. And it was quite interesting, so I think he probably deserves a spot there. I mean, he's a cool character, he's interestingly written, but I fucking hate him with a passion. I do still kind of want to see them named, but if they're not going to be in the story much longer, it doesn't really matter too much. But either way, cool characters, interesting addition to the story. They definitely had plot agency, and they're fine. They're fine. Mallow, I think Mallow has to be high C. maybe low B. Yeah, I think B. I think she deserves to be a low B because she hasn't really done much in terms of like story progression. She's obviously introduced to the character through the cooking club. She's a new addition to the game, so she hasn't had too much time to shine. And moving forward, she definitely will have that. But for me, she hasn't done enough really to deserve a higher spot. I'm looking forward to seeing what she can do. Voicing her is a bit of a challenge because I'm not really sure how to do the Hawaiian accent. It's, you know, so there's a lot more to come from her, and I'm probably going to figure things out as I go. But for now, I think she probably deserves that low B. Maybe higher in future updates, but for now, definitely deserves it. Also, the model is very, very cute, so she's going to be a fan favorite. This guy, I'm putting him in D because I don't like his classes. I think he's funny, but I don't know why. It just reminds me, his classes. Every year in school, I always had at least one teacher that I did not want to sit through a class with. And for me, he reminds me of some of those. Like, for me, it was like, oh, I've got triple science later. I can't be bothered for that. I'm not looking forward to that. That's what his class reminds me of. It's like, ugh. Am I going to have to read out a bunch of Japanese words? Am I going to have to listen to you tell me I need to throw stones at Pidgeys to beat them? You know, so there's definitely that sort of aspect of it. And yeah, I'm not a massive fan of Marshall. But, you know, it is what it is. I think he probably belongs there. May, however, I think I'm putting her in S because I think she probably goes below Lance. She was a very early sort of contender for me for romance character, for a character that would be interesting to romance. I'm a Gen 3 boy at heart, personally, so I've always got a soft spot for the Gen 3 characters, except for Brendan for some reason, but May is adorable. There was definitely some relationship troubles going on there between her and Brendan, which, you know, I thought that was cute. Like, it was an interesting sort of development going on there, and it was very interesting to see where that went. It's kind of calmed down a little bit now, and I would like the opportunity to explore that whole side of things a bit more. I know that they're planning to make certain characters not appreciate certain actions you take more than others, so there is potential in the future that obviously May and Brendan, one of either or, will not like you very much, but yeah, I think she's cute. She's got a lot going on there with the whole Brendan situation, with the whole coordinator club and the cooking thing. She's cool. She's really, really cute model-wise. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with her story-wise moving forward. Melanie, we haven't really met. We have kind of, but I don't think I've met enough or seen enough of her classes to really form an opinion yet. I think we took an ice class once, and I can't remember it. So I'm willing to put it sort of here. What's her name? Miriam? The nurse girl, the nurse lady. I like the nurse lady, but we haven't really interacted with her much outside of the story. I know that she kind of is a bit of a story character, but yeah, we haven't really interacted with her much. So I'm happy to put her sort of either side. I should go either here or there, I think. She's an interesting character. She's given me a lot to think about voice-wise. She definitely has some story agency, being the person that, you know, you have to report to after you save everyone in the forest. Yeah, she's cool. She's definitely got a lot of potential moving forward, and we'll see how that sort of develops going forward. But yeah, for now, not really much of an impact. Now, Misty is a... Right. So I am going to put Misty in the S tier. And the reason I'm putting Misty in the S tier is kind of in a tribute, because Misty's voice actress, Rachel Lillis, the original voice actress for Misty, has very recently been diagnosed with terminal illness. I believe it's cancer. So Misty in general is one of the most iconic anime girls in history. She's one of the most iconic anime characters in history. For me growing up, she was one of my favorite characters. I adored the Pokemon anime, and Misty was a huge reason why. She was a lot of people's first crushes, to be honest, and a lot of that is down to the amazing voice work that Rachel Lillis gave to the character and the amount of heart and soul she breathed into that character. So I think she deserves the S placement off of that alone. And what I will do, right above my head, I think it will be that side, I think it will be this side, yeah, right directly in the top right hand corner of this video, there will be a card, and that card will take you directly to the GoFundMe for... oh, I've just realised I've had a bunch of stuff on screen. That's cool. But yeah, a lot, like, I will have a card on screen in the top right-hand top right-hand side of the video, just kind of as a direction towards that GoFundMe. I've donated £5 to it myself. I don't have a lot of money on me at the moment, so that was all I could kind of afford, but it would mean the world to me if you would go and support this incredible talent during their, you know, terrible, terrible plight. So if you want to go and donate to that GoFundMe, go right ahead. It would mean a hell of a lot to me if you did, so yeah, I appreciate you. But on Misty as a character in Pokemon Academy Life Forever, she's interesting because we haven't really seen a lot of her. I know that there's potential for some interesting stuff going on there. The fact that she hangs around with Blue quite a lot on their table, you know, there's some sort of character there, but there's not a lot of agency going on with it. There's not a lot to really get involved with when it comes to Misty, at least for me at the moment. So maybe if I go back and, you know, choose some different scenes, some different sequences in the story, I could have a little bit more of an opinion on her, but for now, she stays in S tier just off of the back of Tribute, but if I were to really rank her, she'd probably go sort of C, but she's definitely staying in S for now. Mom, yep, right here. I think she's the 4th or 5th best character in the game. She is the epitome of a glow-up. Every mom in every Pokemon game besides Sun and Moon, because that mom character was a badass, and that should be the mom that this is based off of. Every mom in every Pokemon game has just been cookie cutter NPC, 1 or 2 lines of dialogue. This mom is the glow up of the century. She is a genuinely loving, caring, supportive role model parent that you need in your life. She has a lot of story agency, being the person that convinces you to go back to CobraCon in the first place. She's the person that kind of gives you your letter, giving you your attendance letter. She's just a genuine joy to voice for me. Genuine joy to be around. Yeah, she's great fun. She's amazing, and I love the character. She's fucking perfect. Everyone, we stand Mom over here. We stand Mom. Nate, I think, goes in A tier. I'm not sure where in A tier. I think he probably goes above B, behind Dr. No, I think he goes... I think that's probably fair. Because there's a lot going on with him. Obviously, he has the whole Genesect Azoth 1 situation with the mind blowers sort of deal. Yeah, there's a lot going on with Nate/Blake. He was kind of interesting in the voice too. I got to give him a little bit of this, something super sweet and southern, you know? I thought he was cool. He was a very fun character to voice. I think he looks cool. The model is really sort of well put together. It's a very pretty model. And yeah, there's a lot going on with Blake. So looking forward to seeing what the story does with him. Nessa, I think, also goes in A, but I don't think she's a high A. I'd argue she's behind Dean Drayden. I think that's probably fair, because Nessa, as a character, she's... So there was a bit of controversy when this game first came back. There was a lot of people sort of attacking this game for their portrayal of Nessa. I disagree with the criticism entirely. I thought that the character was interestingly written. I think there's a big sort of what's the word I'm looking for? There's a big bouncy character progression system going on with her and the other Galarian stars. She's forward. She's very forward, but that's to be expected. They've just made a character decision with the character, and I think it's a good decision. I think she suffers a little bit from being such an important character in the Pokemon... Well, not important, but like such a fan favourite in general in the Pokemon community, that it's always going to be a little bit difficult to live up to that sort of hype. But I think she manages it well, and I think she's a very interestingly written character. So, yeah, I think that's probably a fair placement. She also gave me an opportunity to do another British voice, which, you know, I'm not going to pass that up because it's a lot easier for me to do my own accent than it is to do an American. So, you know, I can't really complain too much. Now, Professor Oak. I think he's an S tier character because he's not a good character. And what I mean by that is he's got character flaws. He's got a lot wrong with him in terms of like a character. but that is to the benefit of his character. He's made mistakes, lots of them, but he's always tried his best to sort of do right by people. He just doesn't quite understand what's right by people, if you get what I mean. He's got a lot to answer for in the story. He's obviously the person that gave us the invitation to KobaCon in the first place. He's also the person that we obviously go to for a lot of guidance and tells us more about our Pikachu, but Professor Oak is a good character in this. He's well written. He's not a nice... Well, he's a nice person, but he's not a... the be-all, end-all that everyone in other Pokemon games seems to see him as. He has flaws. He's got things wrong with him, and I think that's good. I think that's a good thing. So, yeah, definitely deserves S. And to be honest, it's quite interesting doing his voice. It allows me to do something a little bit different, you know? Oh, lad, don't worry about your Pikachu. It's a fun voice. It's a good character. S-tier material for sure. The old man... I don't know why, but I got a soft spot for this old geezer. I would put him in D, but I don't know, I just got a soft spot for him. He allowed me to do this sort of accent. I didn't have many opportunities to do any sort of Cockney stuff, so I thought having this guy around would be the perfect opportunity for it. You know what I mean? So, I just have a real soft spot for this guy. He should be here. He should be here, but I'm putting him here. I think he's fun. I think he's just fun. He's a fun character to have around. Olivia, we haven't met because we haven't done any rock classes. I think we've had a few interactions with her, but I don't really see them as being super memorable. I think she's great as a character, like in general, and I would love to do another playthrough where I have more rock types and I do explore that avenue a bit more, but for now I think she's got to go in have not met yet. Raihan was another interesting one for me. I think he goes in B tier because we haven't seen too much of him yet. He does allow me to do sort of this, a little bit of a cheeky chappy, you know, so I can't really complain too much. And his accent is one of the easier ones for me. It allowed me to get a little bit of depth in there, a little bit of a breakup of the generic tone of things, because my voice is very sort of high-pitched, so I have to sort of be very careful when I'm doing accents that they don't all start to sound similar. Raihan gave me an opportunity to break up the tone, which I very much appreciated. As a character, he does seem a bit bog standard. There's a little bit of nuance going on with him, and I'm looking forward to exploring that a little bit more. But for the moment, you know, I think he's solidly in B tier. He's definitely around the Lycia mark, so looking forward to seeing what they do with him moving forward. And yeah, it's going to be cool. Ramos, we haven't met yet, so he goes in there. I think he's the grass type elective person. Red, I think I'm putting him at number 1. Just because he's the character we've spent the most amount of time with. He's the character in the game that allows me to use my own accent, which, you know, I always have to appreciate that. I think he's very funnily written. He's got a lot of nuance to him. He has the most agency, and he's just iconic. Like, he was the perfect choice for the main character's model. I love what they've done with the character. I'm obsessed with it. I think he's great. He definitely deserves to be at least 1 or 2. So, yeah, Red has to go there. Rosa also goes in S for me. And the reason she goes in S, I think she goes just ahead of May for me. Rosa is one of the most intriguing character glow-ups in history, because she's quite frankly not a character that anyone really thought much about until Pokemon Masters EX came about, and then she became everyone's favourite. She became like so many people's favourite characters just because of how they sort of personalised her in the series. And so I think that, you know, I love the way that they've written her in this. She's this movie star, but she's down to earth and she just wants to enjoy life. I've got a bit of a soft spot for the pigtails. Note to self, any guy or girl I date in the future, if you have pigtails, I'll probably fall for you. But yeah, she's an interesting character. She's definitely on my list of characters that I want to see if I can get the romance to progress with. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. She definitely deserves S tier. I think the model's really cute, the character's really fun. And she kind of allowed me to do a little bit of depth with my voice because, you know, I kind of gave her a little bit of a southern charm, an American charm, but I was able to put a little bit of extra into it, you know? So, yeah. She was an interesting one to voice. Definitely deserves the S. Let's get rid of that. And the Roughneck, get in D. He's a fun character. He's not so much of an arsehole as these two. I don't hate him or anything. He's just kind of a goon. You can't blame a goon for being a goon. You can blame these two for being arseholes. You can't really blame this guy. And he did also give me the opportunity to do an Italian American accent. What are you talking about? Hey, bozo, I got your hat. You know, like, he's a cool character. I enjoyed it. Roxanne, I think she just goes right in the middle of these three. Brawley, I liked a little bit more because he had a bit more agency. Faulkner, probably that side as well. I think Roxanne goes there. Not really much to say. She's got some of the most iconic moments in the game in terms of the welcome speech, in terms of what happens with the student council. But in terms of a character, we don't really know much about her other than she's very strict. And she likes to have naughty times with the other two. So, yeah. Interesting sort of character, but I don't think it's really explored as much as we would like it to be because just of the nature of the character. So yeah, deserves a seat here. Sabrina. This is where I kind of ruffle a few feathers. I'm putting Sabrina here. Below Bianca, below Jasmine, and not in the S tier. She is a typical damsel in distress character, which is very appealing in terms of like making people fall in love, because we all have a bit of a hero complex. We all want to feel like, you know, we can help people, and you know, we want to help this cute girl. But in terms of a character, I think she's written well. I think she's got a lot of story agency. She's obviously the one that accidentally spills our secret and gets assaulted, and you know, she's definitely a damsel in distress in that way. She was also quite interesting, the voice, because I wasn't really sure what to do with her. But she gave me a lot of opportunities for exploration, voice acting wise. But I think as a character, I think she's not as strong as some of the ones above her. Obviously, Misty notwithstanding. Yeah, I'm probably going to get a bit of a flack for that, but I think she definitely deserves here. I also haven't done her rank up scenes as much, so I'll have to go back and do those and show those on screen. But yeah, for now, I think she deserves A. Serena, I think, is probably a little bit lower. She's an interesting character. I don't think she's got as much progression as I would have liked. I mean, obviously, we've got the whole Grace Umaoka thing. You know, knowing that she's not actually Colossian and she's actually Cantonian. And that's obviously interesting, but I don't know. Like, I think Serena's one of those that we're going to have to wait and see how it develops. She's obviously not happy with Calum. She likes him and she's very attracted to him, but there's definitely something going on there that, you know, that's under the surface, and I think I need to wait and see before I can rank her any higher. I think she's a great character. She's one of my favourites. Gen 6 is one of my favourite generations just because of the expansion to the world it gave. But I don't think I can rank her any higher than an A for now. Also, accent-wise, she gave me an opportunity to practice my French accent and do it in a little bit of a fancy way as opposed to Fantina, who was a little bit more... but Serena was, how you say, classe, very elegance, c'est magnifique. So it gave me a little bit of an opportunity to practice that. So, yeah, cool character. Silver, I think he's a low S. He's an interesting character. He's definitely one of the most iconic in the Pokemon series in general, and this game's done a good job of capturing his personality. I don't think he's as strong as those ahead of him, but he's definitely one of the strongest in the game. He's a very interesting, nuanced character, and some of his scenes have been really funny and really heartwarming at the same time. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what the game decides to do with him now that he's in the disciplinary committee. There's definitely a lot to look forward to with his dynamic and, you know, dynamic with Skylar. I kind of ship those two a little bit more than I ship anyone with Sharen. But yeah, Silver's a good character. I really like him, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the game does with him. Skylar, on the other hand, I think she's mid. I think she's mid, just because we haven't really got much of a personality there. She's upbeat and cheery, she's a pilot, she's a flying type user, that's all we've got. She's obviously one of the more, how do I put this, risque characters in terms of their outfit choice, but I think as a character there's definitely a bit more room to explore them. I haven't done her scene, so personally from my experience with the game, I haven't seen enough to push her any higher. But I do think she's an interesting character, and I am looking forward to seeing what she has in store character progression-wise in the future. Sonia, for me, is another low S. I love Sonia to pieces.
she gave me an opportunity to do another British accent, so obviously I can't really be too disappointed with that. You know, I'm going to have a little bit of a bias towards that, of course. You know, haha, hip hip.
So I can't really, you know, say much more than that. She's a very well written character. She's got some very dramatic story progression. She worked with Old Man Oak in terms of trying to discover more about the Foreveralls and stuff. So yeah, a lot going on there. Really cool character, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with her moving forward. Also, I think she's very cute. I used to be a natural ginger before I started maturing, and my ginger sort of disappeared from my face. So I've got a thing for other ginger characters, as you can probably kind of tell with every ginger character so far being an S tier, except for Alder. And Flannery's redhead, so that doesn't count. But all of the gingers, let's go. Lieutenant Surge, I think he's hilarious. I think he goes bottom of B just because he's got a little bit of story agency with the scene between him and Leaf. I think that's a very cool sort of moment where he goes and kind of explains that, you know, she just has to do it and get over it and fight the fear. His voice was a little bit difficult to do, maggots! But it also kind of fried my throat. So I think he's probably the highest ranked of the teachers so far. And I think he probably deserves it. He's funny, he's iconic in Pokemon, and this game's done him a bit of justice. Tier, straight in at S. Probably below Dawn. Maybe above Dawn. Yeah, I'm going to put her above Dawn. I think she just misses out on a top 5. She's hilarious. She is creative in terms of the way that she's implemented mechanics into the game. The sign language aspect of things that she implemented was amazing. Her whole dynamic with Whitney was fantastic, and I just think that, you know, she is one of the most interesting characters in the game to, you know, interact with. She's obviously a Latias, so that helps. You know, she's got story progression. And for a while, she was one of the most intriguing, progressive characters in the game. But as it's gone on, obviously, once the Latias reveal was revealed, it became a little bit difficult to sort of, you know, push her into the story. And she lost a bit of agency that way, but she's still one of the most memorable characters in the game. She's got some of the best moments. She's hilarious.
And she gave me an opportunity to do a voice like this. Hello, Alex. How are you?
It's so funny. I like her a lot, and she's definitely one of the best characters in the game. I can't even remember this character's name. I take her classes, and I cannot even remember what her name is. So for me, I think that alone puts her in low C. I can't remember her name, but what is her name? That's going to bother me. She's obviously the fairy type elector. Valerie, that's her name. She's interesting from like a perspective. She's got some fun interactions with Ethan during the class, you know, kind of making him see that, you know, maybe he would rock a skirt, maybe he wants to wear a skirt. And the whole fashion aspect of things is quite interesting. So she's not a bad character, but the type elective teachers are a little bit hamstrung by how much they can sort of get across during their small dialogues. I think they're great, and I think she's a fun character, but I think that's probably a fair place for her, so I think she goes there. Wallace, haven't really interacted with, so I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with him. I really am, but for now I think he's got to go there. Wally, I think, is a low B. We know what Wally's story progression is, we know what his character arc is going to be, but also, it's Wally. You know, he made me say senpai. His voice was interesting to do, but we kind of know what Wally is. His character is, you know, it's always the same, and it's going to be interesting to see whether they have any sort of variations on that theme during this game. Sort of character twists, some turns, but he's just Wally in his most basic form, and that's not a bad thing. I think it's good to have a one-note character, but, you know, it'll be interesting to see how he progresses. So I think he's a little bit below Gardenia in the A tier. He's A tier just because of the strength of his character, and they haven't done anything wrong with him at all. Like, it's just going to be interesting to see how they handle him moving forward. So yeah, Wally's a cool character. Whitney, I love Whitney to pieces. Everyone's favourite lesbian. She's probably either side of of Dawn, probably either side, probably this side of Dawn, probably slightly below tier. I think it's fitting that they're next to each other. They are some of the most interesting, fun characters in the game. I love the fact that Whitney is LGBTQ plus representation. I was a little bit nervous about how they would handle Whitney with the whole Phrenergy situation and with the whole rank up scene. It's a bit strange to me that Whitney, at the end of our date, for want of a better word, turns around and says, well, why haven't you asked me out yet? I would like to revisit that scene and kind of see it another time and kind of soak in the vibes that are going on. And if she is having a little bit of an awakening, you know, like, that would be interesting to see. She's obviously interested in us in at least some way, whether that's sexual or not, that's a different story. But yeah, she's a fun character. She's been very fun to voice. She's one of the most iconic Pokemon characters in history just because of that damn Miltank. And yeah, be interesting to see where they go with it from here. She's also been privy to some of the most hilarious dialogue in the series in terms of the whole, oh, I slept with sisters. Speaking of sisters, my pet theory is that one of those sisters was Professor Cherry. I hope not. Will is a cool character. I think he goes sort of mid A, high B. I think he's above Wally, above Gardenia. Yeah, he goes about here. He's one of the more interesting characters in the game. One of the more interesting elective teachers. Just because of, you know, he's obviously cares a lot for Sabrina and cares a lot for us by extension. So he's a cool character. I think he's genuinely been written quite well. He was fun to voice because I got to do a little bit of this. Oh my god. How did I voice him again? How did I voice him? Well, oh dear, it looks like we have ourselves a doubter. The great Will. You know, like, that was fun. That was fun to voice. It allowed me to mix and match and kind of mix it up a little bit voice-wise. But yeah, fun character. Very interesting guy. Looking forward to seeing how they move forward with him as a character. And yeah, cool guy. Winona, we haven't done a flying class, so we don't really have any experience with them as a character just yet. Looking forward to seeing how she handles her classes. I think she's supposed to be like an inexperienced teacher, but yeah, interesting. And of course, clocking in as a top 5 member, I think she goes at number 3, Yellow. I adore Yellow to pieces. It's fitting that the Dorm 251 or 151, I can't remember what number it is, but all the dorm members currently are right at the top because they are the ones we interact with the most, and they are the ones with the most complex and interesting characters. Above that, the mom being the next highest is interesting, but yeah, I think Yellow as a character, she is genuinely one of the most fun characters to voice. Because I get to do a little something like this. Blue, that's not a very nice thing to do. I don't know what you're doing, Blue. And she's written very well. She's written in a way that she could be shipped with basically anyone. There's obviously something going on with her and Ethan at the moment, so that's fun to, you know, get behind. But yeah, she's got a lot going on for her. She's obviously, you know, interacting with us in some way. There's obviously some kind of history there. But yeah, I think that's probably a good placement for her. And I'll just zoom out so you can see everyone on screen and see the full tier list. That is the tier list, apparently sponsored by TUI. Live happy. I'll take my money now, TUI. But yeah, that right there is your Pokemon Academy Life Forever Week 7 tier list. Obviously, things will shift and change, and I'll do another one of these in Week 8. Depending on how things are going. I'll take a screenshot of this and I'll move characters up and down based off of how they've been interacted with in the story. But for now, I think that's a good list. I'm a very big fan of this game so far. I think every single character on here is written incredibly well. I've got criticisms, of course, but everyone's going to have criticisms. And I've come from an acting background. I've studied a lot of character stuff. So, you know, I've got a lot of sort of input on that way that I think could be valid. But I think this is probably the most accurate I could have made this tier list. So what do you think of it? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you want to go and make your own, of course, head over to the description join the Discord, and go and make your own tier list, and tell me what you think. And also just interact with everyone in the Discord. They're all lovely people. I have a lot of time for all of them. They're amazing people, and yeah, I've just been a very big fan of it. So thank you very, very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed. If you have, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and go and watch the entire playthrough if you haven't already, because if you haven't, what's wrong with you? And I will catch you in the next video of whatever I decide to make. Thank you very much. Catch you later, and bye-bye.